They thought it was normal, something harmless, something people do every day. But in another country, it was illegal. And for some tourists, that mistake ended with handcuffs, detention, or being forced to leave the country. These are real situations where tourists didn't break the law on purpose. They just didn't know. Let's start with one of the most common cases. Taking photos. Tourists love taking pictures. Airports. Police officers. Government buildings. It feels public, it feels safe. But in several countries, including South Korea, Egypt, and parts of the Middle East, photographing security areas or government facilities is illegal. Some tourists thought it was harmless. They were questioned. Phones were searched. And in some cases, they were detained for hours. All because of one photo. Next case, crossing the street. In many countries, jaywalking is normal. People cross when it's convenient. No one cares. But in places like Japan, Germany, and Singapore, jaywalking is taken seriously. Tourists have been fined on the spot. Some were escorted to police stations just to sort it out. What felt like saving time turned into a legal problem. Now let's talk about medicine. This one has ruined more trips than people realize. Tourists pack their usual medication. Cold medicine, painkillers, prescription pills. They don't hide it. They don't think twice. But in countries like Japan, Indonesia, and the UAE, some of these medicines are illegal without special approval. Tourists have been detained at airports for carrying pills they legally use at home. No drugs, no criminal intent, just a lack of awareness. Here's another situation tourists never expect. Hand gestures. A simple gesture, a sign of approval, a joke between friends. But in some countries, certain hand gestures are considered deeply offensive. And in places with strict public conduct laws that can lead to police involvement, tourists thought they were being friendly. Authorities didn't see it that way. Next case, feeding animals. Feeding birds in a park feels kind. It feels harmless. But in cities like Venice and Barcelona, feeding pigeons is illegal. Tourists have been fined for doing it in public squares. Why? Because it damages buildings, creates health risks, and attracts pests. Good intentions didn't matter. The law did. Now let's talk about clothing. What you wear at home might be illegal somewhere else. In several countries, wearing camouflage clothing is illegal for civilians. Some tourists wore it as fashion. Others didn't even realize what it was. Authorities did. In other places, revealing clothing can be considered a public offense. Tourists thought it was normal. The law disagreed. Here's a big one. Using drones, small drones, just for fun, just for vacation footage. In many countries, flying a drone without permission is illegal. Tourists have had drones confiscated, some were fined, others were questioned by police, all for pressing a single button. Now let's talk about alcohol. In many countries, drinking feels normal, on the street, in public places, during festivals, but in some countries, public drinking is illegal. Tourists have been fined or detained for holding an open bottle. What felt like vacation freedom was actually breaking the law. Another case, public behavior, holding hands, kissing, showing affection. In some countries, this is completely normal. In others, it's illegal. Tourists didn't expect it. They didn't mean harm, but public behavior laws are enforced in many places. One last example, disrespecting national symbols, flags, currency, images of leaders. In some countries, mocking or disrespecting these is a serious crime. Tourists have been questioned, detained, or fined for jokes they thought were harmless. So what's the pattern here? These tourists weren't criminals. They didn't wake up planning to break the law. They assumed normal was universal. And that assumption got them into trouble. The truth is simple. Every country has rules that make sense locally. But to outsiders, they can feel invisible until it's too late. A single mistake can turn a dream trip into a nightmare. If you travel or plan to travel someday, subscribe. Because the tourists in these stories thought everything they did was normal too. And sometimes, not knowing the law is the fastest way to ruin your vacation.